Thank you all for joining us. I'll be your moderator for today. This webinar is very important to us. As the green community begins to grow, so does the need for green jobs. My name is Yolanda Bonner. I am the Associate Director of Building Performance with the Building Innovation Hub. And to just give you all a little bit of background on the Building Innovation Hub, who we are and what we do, we are a project of IMT. We help building industry professionals in and around the Washington, D.C. area create and operate high-performing buildings. The hub is a connector. We're a resource connector. We help connect professionals and provide information and programming. One of the hub's biggest goals is to meet the current needs of the building industry while simultaneously pushing the industry towards the innovative solutions that we will need to build and operate high-performing buildings. Now to talk a little bit about the hub and who we are, I want to take a small moment to introduce you to some of our speakers, our panelists for today. First, I've already introduced myself, but next up we have Justice Watson. She is the Economic Inclusion Manager from Emerald Cities Collaborative, who will share insights on how their initiatives are empowering communities through sustainable practices. They operate resources like the Contractor Incubator Program, a program designed to help foster the growth of small businesses in the green economy. Following Justice, we will hear from Gabrielle Goodwin, a small business owner who has participated in that Contractor Incubator Program. Her company supplies residential and commercial developers in the building industry in the DC area. And then lastly, we will hear from Shakir Canning Moye, VP of Julius Education. He will discuss the newly developed Capital Regional Green Buildings Career Map and speak to vital roles that resources like the Career Map and other educational and training pathways play in this role in getting us to these green jobs to help facilitate the advancement in green careers. Our agenda for today will be a 25-minute remark from our panelists. We then move to some moderated Q&A time. That'll be about another 20 minutes. And then we will open the floor to the audience and have a Q&A from our audience, which will be about 15 minutes. But we're not going to put a time limit on it. We want to hear from you guys. We want to know how can we continue to improve and make this journey successful. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Justice.
Thank you, Yolanda, for that introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being here today and just allowing me to share a little bit about Emerald Cities, ECC for short, and who we are and what we do. ECC was created in 2009 by a powerful network of national and local community, labor, policy, business, and nonprofit organizations. And we advance racial and economic and climate justice to build more equitable and economically just and sustainable communities through replicable strategies in community and worker power building and economic inclusion and equitable implementation. We are a Black-led organization, and we have regions in the Pacific Northwest, Northern California, Southern California, and Northeast. And our newest region, which was actually founded last year, is the DMV region. So although our region was actually founded around this time in 2023, we've actually participated in collaborations in DC for the last few years. And the organization has had its headquarters here since the founding in 2009. And through our work in DC over time, we've concluded that low income and communities of color face discrimination in access to home and business loans, job opportunities, and hiring networks. The resulting negative impacts include poor health, poor housing conditions, rent and utility burdens, and income and wealth disparities. And you can actually see that in this first graphic here, where it shows the gap of renter household cost burdens by race and ethnicity, with the Black and Latinx populations here. Cost burdens over 50%, whereas you have the Asian and white cost burdens resting right under 40%. And so there's also a lack of access to information about emerging opportunities and pathways to build skills in the clean energy space, which can hinder competitiveness. But there have been regional investments made in the green building sector and energy efficiency, create new opportunities for disadvantaged communities of color And we've concluded that proactive system reform and capacity building for BIPOC residents, workers, farmers, and contractors can actually overcome some of these challenges. It actually is worth noting that some of the issues that I previously stated on the last slide are actually rooted in a disconnect between demand and supply. Here, I just want to define what ECC sees as demand and supply. So demand begins with policy development, and an example of this would be the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Amendment Act of 2018, which actually yielded the Building Energy Performance Standards. And so then following the development of a policy, there are investments given to support new systems here and align program development for policy implementation. So following the example that I gave before, it's like the amount of private and public dollars that were invested into retrofitting large buildings across DC, including financing from the DC Green Bank and other community development financial institutions, green lending from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And so then lastly, on the demand side, we have projects and contracts that are then developed to deploy the work. And so coming over here onto the supply side, we must develop strong pathways that are then, we must develop strong pathways for both workers and small businesses to access training and pipelines for jobs and projects to meet the demand and create sustainable economic opportunities. To do that, we start with stakeholder coordination, which includes direct outreach to various contractors in the DMV network, as well as partners already engaged in workforce and contractor development, or just otherwise playing important roles in the ecosystem. And then it's important for us to have a diverse group of workers and contractors to do the work, which then yields systems alignment. And lastly, contract and labor compliance ensure economic inclusion and the high road approach. So our goal is to increase supplier diversity. So our purpose with ECC DMV's contractor development programs and initiatives is to increase the percentage of diverse owned businesses doing clean energy construction in DC. And so through those training programs and technical assistance support, we hope to instill a pathway to scaling the participation and leadership of minority contractors in the clean energy and building performance sectors in the greater DC area. So this is that pathway that we're talking about. So a lot of small and minority construction businesses normally start out in this area or even in this area. And we're wanting to do these trainings and offer that technical assistance to get them from step 1 to 2 to 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So why are we choosing diverse contractor development? The overall answer is very simple, but it's also very complex. And to simply put it, it's to close the race and gender wealth gap. And so the Inflation Reduction Act and Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act allocated billions for clean energy, which drove the demand in related industries. So these federal funds are actually aimed at advancing racial justice, ensuring at least 40% of the benefits flow to historically underserved communities. And like I said, we're hoping to close the racial wealth gap, and you can see that a little bit here where you see from 1963 to all the way up to 2022, the average family wealth has increased significantly for the white population, while Hispanic or Latinx and Black populations are still down here, barely reaching 400,000 for that average family wealth. And for us, enabling BIPOC and women business owners to access clean energy opportunities is vital for addressing this wealth gap and hoping to close it. Business ownership in these industries is crucial for wealth building. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that there has been a rise of Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, but yet Black-owned businesses still remain the underrepresented, making up only 2.3% of employer firms, despite representing 14.2% of the population. So we feel like now is a pivotal moment to build infrastructure that helps to diversify that helps these diverse owned businesses scale and thrive in the growing clean energy sector. So with that said, we've talked about labor market, demand and supply, how we hope to increase supplier diversity and why it's important to us. And so now I'd like to share a little bit about the program that we launched earlier this year to resolve some of the previous issues that I've shared. So the DC Contractor Incubator is a program designed, and Yolanda actually also shared this earlier. I appreciate that, Yolanda. So it's designed to empower local small and disadvantaged firms in the district with a focus on the 21st century construction industry. We emphasize the green building and clean energy sectors through a targeted curriculum by various industry experts. We prioritize businesses from wards 5, 7, and 8, home to many of the underserved communities within DC. And however, understanding the nature of the DMV, the highly speculative real estate, high housing costs, decades of displacement, and a large commuter population, we do accept businesses from Maryland and Virginia as well that are doing business in DC. Participants in the program receive up to 2 years of personalized coaching, technical assistance, and support. We pride ourselves on not only providing information and resources, but a holistic suite of services to each of our contractors that come into this program. Our end goal is to expand the pool of qualified minority, women, and disadvantaged business enterprises skilled in advanced green and smart building technologies, which will then increase community wealth, closing that wealth gap, hopefully, and reduce the energy burden in BIPOC and low-income communities. So just gonna run through a couple of stats. I know I'm a little bit over time, but for cohort 1, we accepted 25 contractors, and 15 of them were from wards 5, 7, and 8. 11 of them were women, 14 men, and 24 of them were BIPOC businesses. This cohort, which actually just started a couple weeks ago, we accepted 17, and 11 of them are from wards 5, 7, and 8, 7 being women, 10 being men, and 16 of them being BIPOC businesses. And over 70% of the construction businesses for both of the cohorts are MWDBE certified, which is Minority Women Disadvantaged Business Enterprises. So we're really excited about that. And then for technical assistance and coaching for cohort 1, 60% of that 25 number have enrolled in monthly coaching check-ins. And during those check-ins, we discuss goals, challenges, progress. The ECC team provides each contractor with technical assistance support, and we operate on a referral process. And I will touch on bonding and financial stress tests in a later slide. 30% of them have received new or large projects and increased their overall revenue. So following the program, many of them bid and secured project or contracts over the summer months. And so they've also learned how to more effectively estimate project costs. When they first came into the program, that was some of the issues that they've experienced, is that they normally underestimate their projects, which causes them to have to do a lot of the work. And we also have a few that are transitioning into government contracts, which is huge. And so then 25% of them have taken the next steps to getting their CBE certification. As I mentioned, about 70% were minority, women, and disadvantaged business enterprises, but we are just helping a lot of them get certified business enterprises. And so we have one-on-one mentorship to help them get certified. And we also help them to discover what other certifications might be helpful for their business and kind of elevate them to be selected for upcoming projects and contracts. So some of the new innovations that we started this summer, we do one-off workshops. That's what we call them because they're not a part of the 8-week training program. So in July 2024, we partnered with LEDC to host a loan readiness workshop. And again, in July 2024, we partnered with CNHED and Johnson Cooper Consulting to host an RFP and technical assistance workshop. We partnered with Daikin Sustainability and Innovation Center. And if you have not been to the center, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful space, and it's really interesting information that they're sharing to do a heat pump training. And then in September 2024, we partnered with DC Green Bank to host a project financing and incentives workshop. And so just touching on the bonding stress test and financial stress test pilot, through July up to now, we've facilitated bonding stress tests in partnership with JSB Consulting. And so what that looked like is every one of our contractors was able to sit down with this firm and go through their everything that allows you to become bonded, and they were given advice and expertise that you might not be able to find online. And so that was really helpful for a lot of our contractors because they were able to learn that they could take the next steps to get bonded or even to get bondable. Or so that was really exciting for us to do that this summer. And then we are also doing a financial stress test pilot currently with one contractor in partnership with LEDC and Brown Investment Group. And what that looks like is they are supplying each of the people from these organizations with all of the materials or documents that are required for when you're applying for a loan. And they are really just analyzing all of those financial documents to see if there are any gaps or to see if there's anything that the business owner can change or modify to improve their back office and their financials and all of that kind of stuff. Like I said, this is a pilot at the moment, just working with one contractor, but we hope to make this into a full-blown process for each of our contractors in the future. Okay, and lastly, lessons learned. Our first cohort of contractors were just, oh, okay, were just so amazing, and they really helped us to learn about the ecosystem of the construction space, especially in the clean energy space. So one thing that we learned is that there's a huge gap in Black and Brown owned construction businesses receiving larger clean energy projects across the DMV. It was often said by our contractors that large GCs, general contractors, often only hire who they know, which causes a lot of unequal opportunities. Another thing is that smaller construction businesses, they often face capacity challenges in things like purchasing technology and equipment, maintaining staff and back office roles and responsibilities, and the list goes on. And so that's something that we're really hoping to improve for these businesses and work on. And then there's also a misalignment in the construction ecosystem with equity, procurement processes, and access to capital. And actually, Dabriel is one of our contractors that has helped us to see all of these different gaps and capacity challenges and the misalignment, especially in this industry. So with that being said, I am going to pass it over to Dabriel.
Hello, everybody. I am Dabrielle Goodwin. My business is Covington Material and Supply Company. We are a DC CBE building material supplier. Just a little bit about me. I'm the president of Covington and started working in the green space through a prior company that I own, Alluvial, where we basically work in the shipping container space, and that kind of then led us into Covington and seeing some gaps and just trying to figure out ways to build clean, energy efficient housing. We started by basically taking a trip to countries that were leading with green sustainability and energy efforts, China being one of the big ones. We spent 30 days in China, along with Turkey, Mexico, a few other countries, but basically just meeting with suppliers and understanding their products, their goals, and really how they were building green and hitting a lot of their just product goals. Some of the products we specialize, we do interior and exterior finishes, and both now we've, as of this year, now incorporated rough building materials. So a lot of your steel, lumber, we're also able to source for you, but everything from lights, lighting, flooring, windows, doors, railing, insulation, charging stations. Right now we're trying to incorporate heavy industrial equipment that is electric, and figuring out ways to basically roll out more green products and really a strong green catalog for contractors. and developers in this space. One of the biggest, issues that we've noticed as builders and contractors is there's a very stringent process for getting green materials into the US. So just by the time they go through all the different ULI certification, all the different various, however they register their products, by the time they get through all the product certifications, there's approvals, and then there are levels of approvals to where they can officially start selling in the US. It makes it tricky. So figuring out a way to say, hey, we're actually discouraging green products from coming into the US. How can we work with some of those suppliers to really create a more streamlined and stringent process? And then also providing access and clarity on green building materials. When we visit a lot of projects, we notice that contractors are, they're just, okay, let's see what we can find on market, but really being able to put together a really clean catalog that we can then come in and that helps people scale, especially when it comes to things like LEED products that help your building reach certain certification levels as you continue to build and move forward. And then also addressing affordability as we travel to a lot of these countries and figuring out how can we make green and deliver green buildings here in the US. It was interesting because China, the minimum wage was $18 an hour. I expected it to be something that was completely different, and it wasn't. Cost of living was pretty expensive. And there was a lot of the nuances that I thought would prohibit us from being able to execute were not the case. Our company, we focused a lot of our time in the incubator program, just figuring out how we could grow. And it was great because from that, we were able to work on developing a comprehensive kind of green book, which is, like I said, that guide for green building materials only, but then also being able to prioritize building another catalog, which we're going to call our Made in America book, which takes those products and then also takes those manufacturers on the equipment side. And basically, not only are we giving you access to be able to purchase the products in the event you want to be able to purchase the equipment to manufacture locally, you also have access to being able to do that locally, because we know it's sustainable just from an economic standpoint of trying to manufacture in the US. And then also being able to provide affordable green building materials. Oftentimes it does drive up product cost. So people, unless they have some real urge, and we're seeing more incentives now for people to go green, but really trying to make sure green products are priced competitively. And then now we thought was the best time to do that, just with all of the green policies and everything favorable promoting carbon emissions. There's this huge push for minority participation. We see a growing demand in net zero housing and sustainable communities, and ultimately just increased construction activity. And those are some of the things that we really wanted to focus on, and just going through the incubator program, operating in the green spaces. What ways are we really reducing overall carbon emissions, focusing on energy efficiency, a really hybrid kind of focus on local and sustainable manufacturing, because again, that's our middle class. If we could bring that back into the US, that would be great. Resource conservation, and then education and awareness. Being able to create a space to where we can educate on green building products and promote those practices and grow those, again, through the incubator and other programs. I want to use this slide right here to really highlight some of the Emerald City incubators, the highlights from the program. One of the biggest things that we got from the program was the industry networking. When we came in, just understanding who to work with and yes, the training was great, but after we were able to dive in on some of that training and really freshen up and hone in on some of those green skills, being able to be placed in a cohort with people who were not only working in the space, not only was it my cohort who I could piggyback off of, talk off of, it was also being connected to industry professionals that allowed us to grow agency leaders in ways that I can't imagine. Through the Emerald Cities, we were able to connect with Yolanda over at Building Innovation Hub. And as we're working on building this catalog, she's like, hey, how about you connect with the EPA or the Department of Energy or other, programs that will help you do that. And we come back to Emerald Cities and they say, hey, we partner with you on there, or we would, help you guys work through that if that's an initiative that you decided to go after. And then we were also connected with someone who was at the Department of Energy as one of the directors for the ombudsman and small business folks over there. Just really being able to have, a vision and have access to everybody who you need right there was really key, because that agency exposure, that was great. And the green training and construction management, figuring out ways to better scale, think about the whole process and going through that. And then the training, assistance, and support. We're done with the cohort, but Justice is still, I got you, we're here, Yolanda, I'm done. And they're still providing the support that I need to basically continue to grow the business. When like I said, we're a spinoff from a secondary company, but when we started officially, it was 2022. We had 0 sales and mainly just did all research and development. Did a lot of travels. Last year, we took on our first client, which was a local builder, and we were able to do 180,000 in sales. This year, we've done 226,000 to date, and currently at this moment, we have 2.2 million in account receivables. And one of our biggest contracts, projects that we received, and like I said, I am grateful for Emerald Cities and just the entire team going through the green space on that. So that is what I have to say about the program, and I'm going to pass it over to Shakur, and what he'll do is basically introduce you guys to the career map, and that way you can actually see ways you can work and get involved in the green space yourself.
No, Gabriel, thank you so much for sharing that, and much success. Every time I hear you tell that story, I get goosebumps. And so I thank you for leaning in there. And Yolanda, thank you for organizing this. And I really enjoyed working with you on building this career map. And I want to jump off and think about what Justice said around the supply and demand. At Julius Education, we're focused on making the energy transition a just transition. And one of the biggest barriers we see there is the human capital or the talent pipeline. And so we work to solve that from one of two ways. The first, we use our proprietary classification and AI modeling tools to better understand the job market at a level of depth that cannot be found elsewhere. Right now, if you are able to, right now, if you think about going out to see jobs at the green level, you'll be stuck at the SOC code level. And one of my favorite examples is if you think about, there's an SOC code that hasn't been updated since 2018 that includes steam fitters, pipe fitters, and plumbers. Right, those all play a different role in energy efficiency. And if you're sitting at a role of a DC, a local government, DOEE was, or looking at a regional, you're trying to do workforce planning, that level of fidelity and data is not helpful in thinking about how to allocate resources and where you have the most need. And so we're able to use that really in-depth tied to job title as opposed to SOC to identify where there's the most available talent, thinking about working with employers like Excel Energy or other folks who are like, oh, there's a good market fluidity, there's awareness of green jobs, this is a good place for investment. Then we also work with job seekers and saying, these are what employers are really looking for. These are the most in-demand jobs. This is where it's good for you to spend the calories to develop talent. And here are some jobs, and here are some most in-demand jobs. And so we're playing both sides of that market to help think about where to make investment, but also help the job seeker find their next opportunity. And thinking about that job seeker, one of the tools that we built in partnership with the Department of DC Environment and Energy and the Hub was this green energy, green buildings career map. We see this career map as a way to demystify what it means to be green. I have so many conversations of what is a green job? What is included in that? And so this is us on a regional level. So thinking about DC, Maryland, Virginia, and the specific deployment, but we built regional maps in Minnesota, we built some in Massachusetts, we're building some in San Diego, and really just taking the labor market intelligence that we have, identifying what are those top 65 to 70 jobs, going out and talking to the stakeholders and making sure the list that we're seeing based on demand and job posting is matching where the puck is going. And so we work with the hub to do a bit of socialization on that initial cut of 70s. And so talking to the policy folks, are there more policies coming down that will make having heat pump experience more important, as an example? I think also talking to employers and saying, does this pathing look right? Is there things you would change? Are there jobs that you see that you're really struggling to hire with? And then also talking to the community organizations. There's a lot of folks doing work in this space, but don't have a good way to explain what those jobs are and how can this tool be helpful for them. And so I'm going to just give a quick overview of what that tool looks like, an orientation of what it could, how we see it playing in the field. And so what you see here is the DC Green Buildings Career Map. It's separated into 5 subsectors. So starting with architecture design, you have facility management. We broke out residential and commercial construction, thinking that the development pathways there are a bit different. And then lastly, sales and professional. I think it's helpful to note that we see these two on the outside, the sales and professional and architecture design. I think so many people think there's a limited way to be involved in green and helping with the energy efficiency and the decarbonization. We see there's roles for people who want to be in offices, people who want to be in job sites. And so being able to have widen the aperture of how people see themselves being able to contribute is really important to us. Then we also separate the map into entry-level roles, mid-level, and senior. And so if you come down here and you click on any role, you're able to get a quick overview of what this job means. And so a brief description, what are some of the work experience required? What are the local pay ranges and the skills and requirements? One of the biggest changes that we did in this most recent update to the career map was being able to link out to relevant training in DC. So if you come here, you look at this map and say, building maintenance worker, that's where I want to start. You can click here, link over to a relevant training sponsored by Congress Heights, and go and take that and move forward with that process. And then if you want to come back here and think about, if I do choose to be that building maintenance worker, what does that unlock for me? Where can I go from here? You're able to see those progression pathways by saying some of those are obvious. If I go from a building maintenance worker to a building maintenance technician, I can see that, but maybe not for an installation apprentice, maybe not for automation system trainee. And so thinking about how people can understand where this unlocks for them, and you're able to continue stepping up those progression pathways to the most senior level. So we'll end it at senior operations manager. You get a summary of that progression pathway here, but then also can think about, oh, if I start here and I stay focused, I can see myself making the salary range. And so thinking about people who are early in their career and don't really see how this all adds up or what it amounts to, this is a visual representation to help them think about what that pathing could be. And the only other things, I'm really excited to get to the questions. I know we went a bit long as a team. So I want to just say, if you want to reverse engineer it, if you say, I know I'm a facilities manager, I know I want to be a facilities manager, but how do I get there? And you can take this reverse engineering path and thinking about the different ways that you can see yourself in that role. And so I think as our goal is to say, the more people that can see themselves as part of this transition, the better we suited are from an economic mobility perspective, but also just from environment. And when we talk to employers every day, we know that there's not enough people that are interested and aware. And there's also a lot of people who have the skill sets but don't know how they apply it. So we're trying to take one of my favorite examples that we've found in the research, the bartender who wants to be in green but doesn't know that those interpersonal skills can really relate as a home energy rater, for example. So how do we have more people be able to translate what they're doing really well today, being able to see themselves in the green space? And that's what we're working to do, and been really fortunate to partner with the Hub and DOE on, and would love to invite Yolanda back up to facilitate some questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justice Gabrielle and Shakir. So now we're going to jump over into some facilitated questions. I'm going to start with you, Justice. How can collaborations between small businesses, educational institutions, and nonprofit organizations enhance the development of green careers and sustainable practices?
I think that together that they can create a robust kind of framework that nurtures green careers and promotes sustainable practices throughout the community, which will then lead to a more skilled workforce, innovation or innovative solutions, I guess I could say, and greater awareness and engagement in sustainability efforts. I think a lot of the things that can come out of that is resource sharing, community engagement, skill development and training, networking, relationship building. I feel like there's so much that can come out of it. And at the premise of it, or the center of it all, I feel like it can lead to stronger collective voices advocating for policies that support sustainable practices and green job creation at all levels, like local, state, and national.
Thank you so much for that. I knew you had that question in the pocket. Thank you. We're going to move to Gabrielle. Gabrielle, what advice would you give to individuals and businesses looking to enter or expand their presence in the green buildings?
I would definitely say start with the Emerald Cities Incubator. Start there, and then also look into other government agencies that heavily play in the green space. DCSEU, start building innovation hub. I think you start to familiarize yourself with everything and make a friend. And from there, you'll be surprised just how you can learn and grow and advance and evolve within.
Thank you, Gabrielle. I appreciate that. Now, Shakir, what are the biggest barriers to increasing diversity and inclusion within green building sector? And how can initiatives like the Green Career, the Capital Region Green Buildings Career Map address these barriers effectively?
No, that's a really great question, Yolanda. And I think there's a lot of things at play. There's a couple that stand out for me. I think one is awareness, right? One of our biggest partners is a GED, and we recently conducted a survey with them. We found that 95% of GED learners are interested in green jobs. Only 5% know how to get started. And so if you know you want to be in the space, but you're not sure what that looks like, and the jobs are popping up so quickly that you're not sure, like a wind turbine technician at this company means something completely different because the employers aren't standardized on how they're talking about these roles. So it's really hard for someone who doesn't have a close way in or toehold to see themselves. I think there is a way that we can continue to promote tools like the career map and others that help people see themselves in the space. I know personally, if you're growing up, you say green, I'm like hearing crunchy and granola, and that's not me. And so how do we have more people be able to maybe challenge that limiting belief and being able to see themselves in the space? And the second, I think employers have work to do. I think we've been able to work on a lot of workforce development, a lot of placement opportunities, and folks get there and they're like, I don't feel I had this really comfort landing spot in the training in the workforce place, but then I get to the job site and it's not that. And so how can employers create a culture that's more opening and more welcoming? We don't get people into these roles and we claim success and then they leave in 6 months. Is that really success? And so I think there's a bit of work to do on the awareness, and there's a bit of work on the flexibility or grace on the employer side on how to create a more welcoming environment.
I asked you that question specifically for a reason because I worked with you on building out that green building career map. I'm not sure if the participants saw in the chat that this green building career map is a free tool. We just completed the first phase of it, and we're expecting to start the second phase of the career map in Q1 of 2025. And there are some new tools that we do plan to implement, especially the contractor/vendor engagement within the career map, because we know that this career map can engagement. So please sign up to the Brand Innovation Hub's newsletter so that you can be on top of when that phase is being rolled out. And we also like to engage individuals. If you sign up, maybe we can tap into you for your engagement and your involvement in making sure that second phase of that career map is executed successfully. Now that we're done with the facilitated question piece, we're going to open the floor up to the audience to see if any of you have any questions for either Justice, Gabrielle, or Shakir. Yeah, so we have one question from Andrea. What is the most common certification or skill employers want for green jobs? And I think Justice, maybe that would be a great question for you to answer. And Gabrielle, please feel free to chime in at any time.
The way that I'll answer your question, it's any of the MWDBE or a CBE specifically in DC. A CBE is a certified business enterprise. But the way that one of our staff members have made it or have described it is like, whatever you are, like prioritizing what you are and getting that certification in that. So if you're a woman, make sure you have a certification that shows that you're a woman. If you are a Black person or a minority, Hispanic, like Latinx, whatever you are, make sure that your certification aligns with that, because people will give you money, people will pay you, they will give you projects for who you are. And so I think that is like a very rounded way to explain that. But I think for green jobs specifically, especially in the construction space, definitely certified business enterprise, disadvantaged business enterprise, minority, woman, like all of those are like really important to get. And Gabrielle, I don't know if you
I'll also say in DCSCU just ran a course and it was free for the lead green associate and the lead building design certification, but you come in with the lead green associate. That's like the standard entry level green certification, but it gives you those overall kind of just high level, how they're thinking about buildings, how they're trying to assess buildings. It gives you the first entry point. So I would say, look at the lead green associate or some of the lead or energy score courses or certifications. That would be where I would start, because when people see that on a resume as well, it lets them know that you have gone through the necessary training and you have the foundational principles together.
And Yolanda, if I could just add, I think we've
Thank
seen
you. Yes.
the building
No, go
principles.
ahead, Shakir. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Building principles be another certification that pops up for folks, and it thinks about the efficiency there. And then I think the one that's not a direct answer, but we've heard from employers, is like the durable skills. I think sometimes called human skills, soft skills, like the managing to results, the solving problems. So often we hear employers say, we can get somebody to do that stuff. I can teach the technical, but that other durable skills are like really needed. So those are two things I would just offer, but definitely double click on what Gabriel and Justice said.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Justice, we have another quick question for you in the chat. Does ECC offer similar incubators in other locations across DC?
Absolutely. It's actually known as the E-Contractor Academy in other regions, in all other regions. I can try to find the link. I'll post the link in the chat. But it's technically the same program. The only difference is that for the DC Contractor Incubator, we're following that holistic approach where we offer the 2 years of coaching and technical assistance. But it's essentially the exact same program, and it's in every single one of our regions. If you're interested, just reach out to me. You can add me on LinkedIn, email me, and I can connect you with whoever in whatever region that you want to get connected with for that.
The very last slide is gonna have some contact information. Once we reach that last slide, you'll be able to see Justice's contact information. Gabrielle, the next question is for you. What has surprised you most about your work in the green sustainability space?
I think for me, the fact that I thought we were making green strides and green efforts in the US until I visited other countries and spent a great deal of time there, and I realized we're significantly behind. And what I mean by that is You go to China and their forklifts, their cranes, all of that is solar, electric. None of those products meet US standards. As much as we think, hey, we are green, we have so much work to do, which is comforting as well, because you see all these dollars rolling out, but it's because they understand that we are a lot further behind than we should be. So I think it's also space and opportunity in that as well.
Thank you for sharing that, and definitely agree. Shakir, the next question is for you. Does the Hub's career map overlap with the U.S. Department of Energy's career map?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really
I know
great question. We work with a few of the national maps, and so we've worked with some federal maps, and we've done those, and they're across the country. I think since recently we've been moving to regional. If I tell you what the salary range in New York and you live in Florida, that doesn't help. And so we think there's a lot more benefit from moving from the national maps to be able to orient around jobs to say what's specific to your area. You're going to get a lot more offshore wind based in certain areas. You're going to get more solar. And so we moved away from the national maps, but we had worked with some of the federal organizations on building the DOE example that was mentioned. And I think that the second question around stakeholder is a really good one. Like, how do we engage the stakeholders? Yolanda, I know you're in the facilitator role, but you're the co-pilot on those conversations. So would definitely love to hear your thoughts. But we were able to really think about who are the key people we want to use this, and go out and asking them what would this need to look like? What does this look like when we made it, and engage them in the entire process? Because when it's done, we want to say, hey, now can you take this map, building trades unions? Can you take this and use this recruiting? A community organization, can you take this when you run your pre-apprenticeship apprenticeship workshop? Think about how you can have this as a recruiting tool at the top of the funnel. Community colleges, DCPS, local public school, can use this for those young people who are thinking about their next step. And so we engage them from are these the right jobs? Do these jobs look right to you? All the way to the final product, and saying, how do we continue to tweak? And I would ask everyone on this call too, we want this is a living tool. If there's things that you think could strengthen that, we would love to hear them. We'll continue to make iterations, but it is we think this is a community tool, and love community engagement. Yolanda, please, you were in all those calls.
Yeah, no, you definitely were spot on. We made sure to hit all of those agencies, especially the returning citizens. We tapped into those organizations as well, and schools. Some kids find it easier to work in a trade setting as opposed to going to a university. So we wanted to tap and engage everyone to make sure they knew that this tool was there. And I think we went as far as the Delaware-Baltimore line to the Richmond, Virginia line, seeking tools to help engage in this career map. So the engagement was pretty broad with the stakeholders. And that will lead into our last question. In phase 2 of the career map, are we looking to expand to the Texas region? If you look at the way the career map is currently designed, even if you're in Texas, you can use the career map to help you gauge your career pathway. As far as jobs being connected from the Texas area to the career map, that's something we possibly would have to do some more internal collaboration on, but anybody anywhere could actually utilize the career map at this point to help them build their pathway into a green job. So technically, even though it sits in the Baltimore, DC, Maryland region area, it can be utilized by anybody in any state. But as far as tapping into vendors or contractors or individuals who are looking to hire in other states, I'm not going to say that won't happen. That will be something we would love to see in the career map. Give us a little time, and definitely there may be some collaborations. We'll have to see.
We would love
Last
it. If
question.
there's an interest, I
Yeah.
would love to let's go to Texas. And Yolanda, I saw the last question,
Yeah.
and I'm curious
Yeah.
your thoughts there, because the unions were a big partnership in building out the
Big
career
part.
map, and I know, at least in some of the work that we've done in Massachusetts, IUPAT has a lot of the Finishing Institute that they're tied
Yeah.
to is a big feeder, and so the laborers have a separate, but a lot of the unions have been building out their apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship support. It's specifically for the green jobs. And so I'm just lifting up the IUPAT because we work with them directly, but I think you could go across that line and
Yeah.
see something similar.
I'm gonna reread the question. I think someone in the chat didn't see it or couldn't see it, but are there any labor unions that are good partners in helping folks get into green jobs? If not, how could they play a more effective role? So I can't speak for other states or jurisdictions, but Shakir just stated, our Glazers, they have been instrumental in us building out this green career map. So I would say here in the DC area, there are quite a few unions that are instrumental in helping individuals get into the green job sector here, but the hub itself, we are talking with our partners. We have hubs throughout and partners throughout the United States. And so one of a conversation that I had internally with some hub coworkers is, how can we create a hub of unions? Get a committee of unions together to help them understand the green job sector and get them more involved, because some unions are shy away from that green space and that green conversation because they don't really see how it benefits them. But I think capitalizing on what we have here in DC and taking it to other areas within the United States, there could be some great collaboration going on there. But here in the DC area, we do have unions that are helping to get into that green space. If you have any questions for myself at the Building Innovation Hub, please email me. If you email me, I can set you up in our newsletter so that you can always stay on top of any changes and resources that we come about with. And the same with Justice at Emerald Cities, as well as Gabrielle at Covington Supply, and as well as Shakir at Julius Education. Again, we appreciate everyone's patience. We thank you all for your participation and thank you for joining us today. And that is it for our session. Thank you guys so much and we appreciate it.